Welcome to the Southern U Podcast, brought to you by Darton Archery on the OKest Podcast Network, with your co-host, Matt Brock, Jeremy Ferguson, and Taylor McMurtry. If you're looking for all things land-related in the Southeast, you came to the right place. Whether it's real estate, habitat, wildlife, or just being outdoors, this is the place for you. Welcome to the Southern U. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Southern U Podcast, where we talk all things land-related in the Southeast. My name's Taylor, and I'm joined by the land aficionado himself, DJ Fergie Ferg, Jeremy Ferguson. What's up, Jeremy?
I don't know that I'm the land aficionado now. I may be being passed up by our other participant here and the missing participant. Them two seem to be hot on the land.
Well, that's good, though. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know where she is on your screen or what you're looking at, but on my screen, she's below. So,
yes,
that's Bray Swaggart, fellow biologist, fellow Habitat Network biologist as well.
And fellow Tutland
agent. Yes, she knows a thing or two about land and wildlife.
Because I've seen a thing or two.
I was not going to say it, but you said it. So. But yeah, so I know that everybody is being pulled in a million different directions. Jeremy is fighting two infections that I can't even say the name of that are tick-borne. Yeah. One is anaplasmosis, and the other one the doctor couldn't even pronounce. So I'm just going to stay out of that.
Maybe you can say it. You know what it is.
The ehrlichiosis.
Yeah,
ehrlichiosis. There you go. If you don't know what that is, don't feel bad. I don't either. So nope, I don't think anybody here really does. It just makes you feel bad
if you don't know what it is, but if you have it, you definitely feel bad.
Right.
It's just more ticks. More ticks.
Yes, ticks are gross, y'all. We're gonna do an episode on ticks and how they ruin everyone's life. And
the little bite though is dramatically better. I don't know if y'all can see it, but it's almost gone now.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Well, and for those of you who stopped by the booth at the World Deer Expo in Birmingham last week, appreciate you stopping by. But if Jeremy looked like he was out of it, it's because he was out of it. He was delirious and delusional and all the things. But yeah, I do appreciate you guys stopping by though, and just saying hello. And a few people, quite a few people, bought some merch and all that kind of stuff. So it was a good show. I hated that I had to miss part of it.
Yeah, it was it really was a good show. I have been down on those type shows for several years, and probably because I was working them at the height of their popularity. You know, to me, that was the height of their popularity, the late 90s and early 2000s. And I think I was going to 6 or 8 shows a year from the late 90s all the way up until about 15. And so I got to the point I hated being at them. But the World Deer Expo in Birmingham this time was packed.
It was.
And now I didn't see the numbers, but I talked to 2 buddies that were vendors, and they said that the Friday evening attendance was the highest that it had ever been. Now, I that's secondhand information. I don't know, but that's what they told me.
That was because everybody's game plan was, everybody I talked to was like, well, we're going on Friday night because it won't be busy. And everybody had the same game plan.
Yeah, well, it was busy. And it was busy for several hours on Saturday. And it was about what I expected on Sunday. I mean, it was busy, but there was never a point that you couldn't walk around and halfway enjoy yourself. Saturday, for a big part of the day, you couldn't do that. It was you had to fight your way through the crowd to get to the bathroom.
Yeah, for what part of it I was there, it was insane, and I saw where actually a couple different people left comments on our Facebook that said, "Hey, I wanted to stop by. I literally couldn't. I literally couldn't get to you. I tried.
It was like being herded like cattle, trying to go anywhere."
So, and so shout out to Mark Brenner for allowing us to be in that booth and hang out and set it up like it was ours. It was very, very gracious and very generous of him to let us do that. So we really appreciate you, Mark.
Yeah, fun time.
For sure.
Enjoyed it. Got to see a lot of people.
No doubt. And I guess speaking of shout outs, do you guys have anybody before we jump into the topic at hand? Anybody?
Well, I know you got one, so.
I do. As a matter of fact, I have a prop for this one.
Uh-oh.
Hang on just a second. So shout out to Ron Bettendorf at Sorghum Hollow Taxidermy. You see this dude right here?
Daggum old pig rat.
That's a rat pig right there, man. That's happy that if you guys remember a couple years ago when we went to South Texas, we got to film a deer capture and we got to do a little bit of playing, hunting a little bit while we were there.
Matt and Taylor got to hunt.
Well, Matt wouldn't let Jeremy hunt. That had nothing to do with me.
That's true.
But yeah, so there were a few critters that got arrow slung at them on that trip, and that was one of them. And hopefully I get the skull back too, because according to Matt, now I don't know anything about this stuff. You'd have to ask him, but he claims that because of how the javelinas are scored, they're scored like a bear is apparently, where it's just the skull width. So there's a shot. He believes that this one that I just showed you, and he killed one too, that possibly could make Boone and Crockett, which would be like the coolest thing ever. Not that I really care about that kind of stuff, but the last thing in the world I ever thought that I would kill a Boone and Crockett animal would be a javelina. So that'd be kind of cool if it was.
Yeah.
But that's my shout out. It looks great. I thought it was a really cool mount, and he did a right turn on it because that's the way it turned when he got shot with the arrow. So I thought it was kind of cool.
When he got whacked.
Yeah, he got smoked, but he was nice and close the way I like him. So, give me one, Jeremy.
Do what?
He said, give me a shout out.
Oh, Lord. I'm going to have to give a shout out to Carly, my nurse practitioner at Lakeside, for keeping me alive the last 3 weeks.
How many steroid and antibiotic injections have you had over the last 3 weeks?
I had a 14-day cycle of Doxy, and I had 2 appointments where I got injections that I don't really know what all they were. Steroids.
This is good for you.
Yes, just the steroids and some other pick-me-ups. I mean, you know how I was before the deer show started, and I had to go by and get pumped full before I got down there, or I wouldn't have made it. There's no way.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, like Jeremy really is fighting like tick-borne stuff. And when we went to go set up the booth and all that on Thursday before the show started, I ended up having to drive home because he was not doing well, and sweating and lightheaded and all the things.
I don't really know how to describe it. It's not that I've been. I mean, I've had joint pain and flu-like symptoms, but it just kind of would come in waves of, I guess the closest thing I could describe it to, even though I didn't have this with COVID, were people talking about having the bad brain frog. Good Lord. Brain fog. Not a brain frog, but brain fog. Man, it would come in waves of, I would be sitting there and I would just lose time and be like, I don't know what I'm doing. Don't know why I'm here. And just, and then, an hour or two later, I would be like, okay, I feel all right. But no, shout out to Carly for keeping me going, because I don't know how everybody else's doctors work, but when I called and needed anything, they just said, yeah, no appointment, come on, just get in here.
Yeah.
So that's been much appreciated, because I couldn't stand missing too much time. Just too much going on.
That's true. Bray, you got one?
Yeah, I will. So yesterday we closed on our first hunting property.
Woo!
So I'll give a shout out. Matt Brock was the listing agent. But I'll really give a shout out to Zach Freeman, the closing attorney, and Kevin Stone at Valley South Bank, because it almost fell apart with some issues we had with our original lender, and Kevin came in and saved the day, and we were able to get the ball rolling and close.
That's awesome.
Pretty swiftly, and we're super excited.
So you bought some hunting property. About where in the world did you decide to buy that? Are you going to be Brock?
Don't you dare
say? Are you going to be Brock's neighbor? Is that what's happening right now?
No.
Nope.
Actually,
nope.
No.
No, she's not lying. She's not Brock's neighbor.
I'm not. Yep. I don't know my neighbors.
And probably keep it that way.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome though. That is the American dream. If you can have you a place where call your own and you can manage it the way you want to and get the wildlife that you want out there, I don't know, man. It doesn't get a whole lot better than that.
I've always wanted somewhere I could kind of experiment and play with, different techniques, different timing of things, and now we've got it. And our little boy, he doesn't understand just yet, but he will. He did walk through. There's a creek, and he was walking it yesterday, and he said, "This is my creek."
That's what I'm talking about. Yes,
it is. It is, buddy.
That's awesome. That's cool. Well, yeah, so I guess we need to go ahead and jump in. I know everybody's got things they have to do. Got kids to give baths and bedtime routines, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to jump in here and talk about something that is somewhat controversial. It's, I guess, a bit of a hot topic in the industry right now. But I do want to say before we jump in here that we aren't talking about this just for the sake of having some hot topic to talk about. I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding around this particular topic. And so I think maybe we'll try to just sort of clear the air, present both sides, and just kind of talk through maybe why people are so up in arms about it, and why some people are not, I guess. And how I've heard Matt and Jeremy both talk about the specific topic, and they both kind of, I don't know, they kind of go against the grain on what most people would think when it comes to wildlife and those sort of things with it. So we'll let the cat out of the bag, talk about the Open Fields Doctrine and how that is being challenged in several states. The Southeast has been overturned or been kind of done away with in several states. And I can't remember where we were when we were talking about it, but what is the status of it currently in Alabama? Did that case get thrown out, or there was something that was going on at the time when we were discussing it initially, and I can't remember where we ended up on that.
I think they're still pursuing it, but it's not gone anywhere.
It's not going anywhere here. It doesn't seem like. I think it was it PA that just overturned
so.
Last week, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and Tennessee has already done so, I think, and it's being challenged in several states. And I think it's a matter of time before it is rolled back, probably in its entirety across the nation. Unfortunately, and I want to throw this out there to start with. Um, a lot of folks think that I am against landowner rights, and I am not by any stretch. I'm a landowner. Um, one of our farms happens to border city limits here, and I have been in a fight, with our land, with municipalities and uh, people wanting to tell me what I could and couldn't do on my own property, and that's why we bought in the county, so that there weren't some of these restrictions. Like I shoot and I hunt on our properties, um, but every now and then there'll be a complaint, and we'll have a sheriff deputy or a city cop that will respond out here and be like, "Hey, you need to tone it down." I'm like, "Hey, I'm in the county. I can do what I want." So I understand the landowner rights aspect of this, but it's a deeper, much more nuanced conversation. And unfortunately, the vast majority of the public, number one, don't know what the open field doctrine is. They don't know the language, don't know how it's used, they don't know how it came to be, and they don't know that it also relies on another piece of legislation at a certain point called the public trust doctrine. So there's more to this than uh, landowner rights and not entering property without a warrant. So it's much more nuanced, and I don't want to braze the sworn officer of the bunch. And unfortunately, Matt can't be on. He was sworn, but I did not. I was not sworn. However, sworn officers did report to me directly, so I did have to know how all of the legalities in the state of Alabama. Of course, we studied public trust doctrine and open field doctrine in college, but being that we were employed by state agencies, we had to know it at a little deeper level than just what we did in college.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, and so I guess just starting out, very basic. For those that don't know, or those who have not heard, can we just get a baseline correct definition of what the Open Fields Doctrine is and maybe what it is not?
Yeah. So it actually started in 1924. There was a case, it was Hester v. United States. And this was, again, 1924, I think, Prohibition era. They were cracking down on illegal alcohol. And there was somebody got arrested, put in jail for the production of alcohol. Mm-hmm. And took it to court, went to fight it. It made its way to the Supreme Court, where they ruled that there's no expectation of privacy in an open field. So beyond your home, you don't have an expectation of privacy in something that you can see driving down the road or walking beyond. They had not established curtilage at that point, but I'll say beyond the curtilage of your home, you don't have that expectation of privacy per the Supreme Court ruling.
Gotcha. And so I know that, Jeremy, you've kind of said it kind of in layman's terms. What does that grant law enforcement the ability to do? Or what does that allow them to do that maybe in other areas they wouldn't have as much liberty or wouldn't have as much leeway, I guess, to
in the most simplistic terms, the way it's being used by enforcement officers, especially when it comes to game and fish laws, they are able to, quote unquote, investigate an open field area without having to notify, one, the landowner, or two, have a search warrant.
Gotcha. And so I think I remember you saying on a previous episode that currently that bar for investigation or grounds for stepping onto someone's private property is pretty low. Like there's not a whole lot that has to take place in order for them to do that, legally speaking.
It is very low.
Okay.
I'll give the detractors of the Open Field Doctrine at. It is very low.
Yeah. I got you.
But when you look at game law violations and how a lot of those are, I don't want to say stumbled up on. I would have to go back. I kept up with it, when we were at DCNR, but the number of cases that the officers that reported to me made it was north of 95% were somebody called in and said, "Hey, I've got this tip."
Right.
It wasn't an officer go stumbling through the woods and just, "Oh, hey, there's corn. I'm going to write a baiting ticket."
Mm-hmm.
Somebody told on somebody. The old adage, "Loose lips sink ships." That's where most of that came from. But to circle back, yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot keeping an officer from walking, throughout your property at this point.
Right. And so, as it pertains to wildlife, it's that they have the right or the ability to go and investigate these claims. If someone makes a claim on their neighbor, hey, I saw them pouring out corn. I've whatever. I've witnessed it. I've seen it. I've saw him pull up with a truckload of corn. Whatever it is, they can go and investigate that. And so, well, I know when we put that little clip out from a few episodes back, people were just like you're saying. Okay, so you just want to have your private, landowner property rights just trampled all over in the name of a turkey or in the name of a deer or whatever. And because I think the comment you made was if the OFD if it goes away, the ones that will suffer will be wildlife. It's not going to, because at that point, there's not going to be any way for a game warden, or a wildlife enforcement officer to investigate those anymore.
Yeah. Laws. I mean, this is my opinion of it, and because I definitely want to hear Bray's being sworn, but my opinion of it moving forward, if OFD is rolled back, we will. I say we, the legislative bodies in each state, or from a nationwide standpoint, will have to take up the subject, because at that point, um, obtaining a search warrant is not an easy thing to do. You have to have pretty good evidence for a judge to sign off on a search warrant. You're not going to reach the level of evidence in most cases to go onto somebody's property. Otherwise, you have been trespassing, and you've broken a law by being on the other person's property. So the way I look at it, if it were to be 40 acres of woods, they could be violating every game law that there is inside that 40 acres. Now, 40-acre field, you can see across, and it's different. But folks that are going to break laws, most of them are going to do it anyway. But when there is zero fear of being caught, it's going to create more folks out there trying to get an artificial advantage over wildlife. Unfortunately, that's just my belief. We're I want it here and now society more than we've ever been, and I think once you have to reach that level of evidence to obtain a search warrant for a game law violation, that it's going to be next to impossible to be able to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, when you think about it, wildlife crimes, they're happening in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'll go ahead and preface this. Jeremy mentioned I was a sworn officer. I was not with Wildlife and Fisheries. I was not operating on private property. I was under the division that was solely on public property. But I worked closely with those men and women at Wildlife and Fisheries. So what I talk about is not things that I personally did on private property to make cases. I'll just go ahead and say that. But, you know, our game and fish officers, they have a community presence. Everybody has their phone number. They can text them in the moment if they're working as wildlife crimes are happening, and that's how a lot of things are stopped. I mean, we all know folks personally that have texted their game warden and had somebody arrested or ticketed on the spot. And when are most people hunting? On the weekends, right at sunrise, right at sunset. It's going to be very hard to get a judge to sign off on that. And not only that, but the relationship that judges have with conservation officers is much different than your city and county deputies, depending on where you're at. Because I have worked in some counties where the judges did not really care about conservation cases. That was not something that they were worried about. So if you think that they're going to answer a phone call at 5:30 in the morning when somebody's shooting before sunrise and give you sign off on a warrant, that's not going to happen.
Right.
So,
Well, no, I get that too, and I guess, because I'm never have been in the law enforcement world, I want to make sure that I understand this clearly, but because I can see both sides, but the example I'm going to use, and you tell me this may be a bad one, but those of you who may not know this, my youngest son is autistic, and so part of his with his autism, something he does when he gets really frustrated, he'll scream, and it's really loud, it's really high pitched, shrill. You know, if you didn't know any better, you would think that we are really causing him like a lot of harm. Like we're beating him to death, we're skinning him alive, like we're doing something to him to make him make those kind of sounds. But like our neighbors, well, we don't have people right next to us, but we got a guy across the street, that a family that lives across from us, and a few houses kind of around the general area. And like part of me is like, if I hear my neighbor screaming as if something is wrong, like something is happening over there, I want to be able to call a police officer and say, hey, I don't know what's happening over there, but it doesn't sound good. Could you please send somebody over there to just check things out, to just make sure that whatever's happening is, it's okay. And so on the other side of that, like, we would have cops at our house every day if our neighbors did that, because that's because Jonah does it all the time. I would kind of be like, hey, mind your business, you know what I mean? Like, this is like, we're just trying to do our best over here, whatever. So I can kind of see where people are going, this is my private property, you have no right to be here. On the other side of it, it's like, I kind of want there to be some authority, some reasonable amount of authority that gives these law enforcement officers a chance to go over there and investigate whatever's been, whatever the claim is. So I don't know if that's a good example or not, but like, does that make sense?
Yeah, that would fall under the exigent circumstances on all of that. But if we went to a state where we got rid of the Open Fields Doctrine, there would be certain examples or certain situations like the exigent circumstances in pursuit of a crime. So, somebody has committed a horrible crime, running from police, running across your property. They have a right to go on your property to look for them.
Yeah.
I think what the big issue is there are a lot of cases lately, and I don't know if it's new behavior or if it's new coverage. I'm going to lean with it's more new coverage on people's rights being abused in different situations, from on a city level, on a county level, on a state level. There are situations, and it gets a lot more coverage now. Every situation is different, but there's a strong push from the general public right now to say, no, my property is my property. It's closed. It's marked. It says no trespassing. I've got my purple paint. I've got my gate. You are not welcome here. And I get that. I totally do. I'm a very, very much I'll mind my own and you mind your own, and we'll leave it at that. But when it comes to wildlife, the North American model of conservation, the first pillar is that wildlife is a public trust. And that was decided upon. And let's not forget that the conservation departments were established by hunters, by choice, because there needed to be a governing body for this public trust.
Yep. Mm-hmm. We as a society have lost all faith in all government institutions since COVID. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. Are there officers out there that use their badge as a little power trip? Absolutely. In every facet of every government branch there is. Absolutely. But as Bray said, wildlife is publicly owned. So the 2 deer that live on my place right here, Taylor, mm-hmm. You own them just as much as I own them.
That's right.
A guy in Tennessee owns them just as much as I own them.
That's right.
Because you're a citizen of these here United States, and all wildlife is owned by all of its citizens. And that's where the rub is coming from folks that are more conservation minded than consumptive user minded. Mm-hmm. And that's how I'm boiling it down. I think folks that look at the wildlife resource as something that they can consume, they can enjoy. I don't think it bothers them that if we continue down that path of just being consumptive users and not conservation minded, eventually we're not going to have the wildlife that we have today. And it's exactly what we did, decades and decades ago. The folks that were here, 100 years ago, they didn't really care about conservation so much as they did sustenance, either eating, what they killed, or driving off whatever was competing for the resources on their land to either grow cattle or that was eating their cattle. And it took decades and decades for us to bring back what wildlife is here. I mean, the North American model of conservation is the most successful wildlife management feat that has ever been on the planet. Nobody else has done what we've done. And I may be forecasting things that's just certainly opinion of mine, but I think we are headed much more toward a more European style of wildlife management / conservation, where we are driving the point slowly to where people believe that the wildlife that's on your property should be owned by that landowner. The problem is they got feet. They can walk. They don't stop at fences. So you're going to have big arguments there. And then like one of the guys that, and he's a good friend, and he made the comment on Facebook of, okay, well, if one, he had it wrong. He said the state owns the deer. State don't. They're a ward of the state, and the citizens own. But his comment was, well, if I hit a deer on a state highway, then the state should pay me. Or if deer's doing damage on my property, then the state should relieve me of that. One thing that he did not know was that he has the right to protect anything on his property with an incidental take. And Bray may tell me I'm wrong, but the best of my recollection, unless it's a significant T&E species, you have the right to take one per day to protect your livestock or your livelihood, which could be crops. And I made the example that I'm here in Marshall County, and when I was still with Game and Fish, a guy in Albertville in Marshall County shot a black bear, and it was getting into his coop. No charges. Although it was a protected species, he was protecting his livestock. So there were no charges there.
If you do that, you better be able to tell your story
You better be able
frontwards,
to prove it.
backwards, upside down, over
Yeah.
and over again.
Yeah.
But I mean, no, it is, and that's Jeremy touched on the European model of things. Like, that is where a certain class of people own the wildlife, and if a deer, stag, whatever we're talking about, is on your property and you kill it, that is a crime.
Yep.
Because you don't own it.
And that was the point I was slowly trying to get to, and I was chasing rabbits. But like she said, I think, and unfortunately, I think that's where we're headed. But if we continue down this path of we're going to roll back open field doctrines, we're going to make it all about landowner rights, well, eventually, I don't trust our government. I do to a certain extent, but if we roll these things back and then we give the opportunity to the government to reclassify and re-legislate, what's going to keep them from saying, okay, well, we've had a meeting of the minds, and our big donors just want only folks that own 1,000 contiguous acres or more to have hunting rights. We're opening that ability up as we speak, and I just don't think people are forward thinking enough on this subject to really see what kind of damage could be done later on by rolling back some of these long-standing laws and regulations.
Yeah, I mean, that's the, it's a sort of a joke, but like the Robin Hood stuff, like you poaching the king's deer, to try to feed yourself, whatever. I mean, it's kind of what you're setting yourself up for. And I think that deep down, nobody wants that. Like, nobody really wants that to happen. But it's at the same time, it's like you said earlier, like, people were not as conservation minded maybe as they are now. And that was the biggest pushback that I saw from that one clip that we had posted on Facebook. Was people were like, you've got it backwards. People aren't just going to just take and take and take and take from the resource, whether that's turkeys or deer or whatever, because we're more conservation minded than we are then. And it's like,
Yes.
It doesn't mean your neighbor
that's
is.
exactly, and that was my response. I said, the way that, especially in the state of Alabama, in 1 square mile, you may have 150 or more landowners, because of how small landholders are broken up. If 20 people do it the right way and one person doesn't, like, you know what I mean? It squashes all of your efforts. Mm-hmm. So I think that is more of the problem here, as opposed to somewhere like Texas, where you've got these massive land holdings that are continuous acres and, thousands of acres all in one piece. It's a little different there,
And Texas, I think even if you rolled back open field doctrine and did away with a lot of conservation principles, Texas would be fine, because they run hunting like a business and they protect it because it's a way to generate money, and a lot of money. Other states don't have that ability. Alabama, kind of what I see coming. I could look back and be totally wrong. And look, this clip will live forever. It's going to be on the internet. But if we roll back open field doctrine, I think the very next step is they will push high fences and breeding operations under agriculture and industry, and they will turn them into livestock. Give it a few years, we will turn all game management over to agriculture and industry and treat them all as livestock. We will reduce them to ownership, and then you're going to have a case of the haves and have-nots. It's going to be the people with money and land in Alabama that control hunting.
Yep.
And people are going to be like, well, they do now. No, they don't. They got a pretty good upper hand. money rules a lot of systems, but Alabama is what 93% privately held land. But you got to look at the millions of acres that's owned by industrial timberland owners, and at which point wildlife is reduced to their ownership. You think lease rates are high now, brother? You better put your big boy britches on, because they're gonna go through the roof if they were to be.
And everything Jeremy just touched on basically puts that North American model of conservation in shambles. Like, it shatters it. Because the first one is wildlife is a public trust, and then it's like wildlife is not a commerce. You can't go kill wildlife to sell it. The state, the feds, they're the governing body. The rules for use are laws. Like, they're set up as laws. It's not opinions. It's set up as laws. It's, according to the model of conservation, policy is supposed to be set by scientific research. I think we have seen enough to know that that is not always the case.
Definitely not.
But one of the big pillars of it is that there's an opportunity for all. And when we start nitpicking and we start taking away open field doctrine, and again, like, I want to really harp on the fact that I am all for landowner rights, and I would not mind seeing a reform in how
absolutely
hunting land is treated. And this is not a knock on anybody that I've ever worked with, because I think the world of those men and women, but you see it in other states, you see it in different places. I think maybe we could find a happy medium on going onto private property on tips, legitimate tips from people that know things. Maybe not the walking through in the middle of hunting season just to check a license in a shooting house.
Yes.
I think there's some things that definitely agitate the public that is not dire to be done to protect our wildlife.
Yeah.
But if we go back to the basics and just do what you're responsible for doing, it shouldn't be a problem on it, but it is. And I mean, it's on both sides of the table. It's a problem because of how the general public feels about it, and it's a problem because of a handful of bad actors that you see in positions of responsibility.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I'm not discounting that at all, because one breach of your constitutional rights is too many.
Sure.
That's right.
No,
yeah,
like
I would really like to see, instead of just the OFD just being wiped out, some type of revamp. But then my gut is that it's just going to stick to, you got to rise to the level of getting a search warrant, and that's going to be tough. And that one of the examples I used, that I don't know if we talked about it on an episode or I did it in a group on Facebook. But like turkey season this year, we had birds on our farm, and we always have a few. This year we had a few more than normal, especially early on. And after the first week of season, all of a sudden all the birds were on one place, one neighboring property that is young pine plantation. And if you know anything about turkey habitat, young pine plantation is not good turkey habitat. There just happens to be a food plot in the middle of it. And, every morning we'd go out and listen for birds, and the birds would be all along the property line, roosted on us. But they would pitch down and go to a food plot in the middle of a pine plantation. And that was enough to be like, okay, yeah, that's pretty easy to know what's going on there. They're baiting turkeys. But then you see the guy drive in on a shared road with, corn and scratch, and come out and don't have any. It's not hard to figure out what's happening. But and those folks were caught and cited for baiting turkeys. And yes, I called the game warden, but that would not reach to the level of obtaining a search warrant. It's not going to. I couldn't prove anything of what's going on. It's just you happen to see somebody drive by with corn when he went in and didn't have it when he come out. You don't know what he did with it.
That's right.
Well, that's where I was talking about. Like, I would like to see a happy middle reach where, you know, you don't necessarily need a warrant to go on if it's a legitimate tip. Now, if you've got somebody that's calling the game warden on their neighbor every single day and it's unfounded. But again, there are so many gray areas in conservation law because every situation is different. Every single situation is different, and there's a lot of gray areas left for an officer to use their best discretion and act appropriately. And I think I talked about this in the group chat the other day. If you get rid of those gray areas and go straight to black and white, a lot of folks are not going to be happy.
That's right.
Because that, you know, instead of coming up on somebody and they don't have a hunting license and you say, well, let me help you buy your hunting license, because that should be the goal.
That's right.
The goal should not be punishment. The goal should be get your hunting license. Support the resource that you're consuming.
Yeah.
That's not going to be an option. It's going to be a ticket.
That's right.
Your kid shoots his first gobbler and accidentally hits the second gobbler behind him that he didn't see, and you try to do the right thing, call your local game warden. If there's no gray area, that's a ticket.
Yep.
And I just think if we keep this, it's so volatile, the difference on both sides. I would be afraid that we would see a lot more people getting hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like any industry. There's, like you already said, there's some bad ones out there, you know, but you know, look, I'm from the church world. You know, I was pastor for a better part of a decade, and like, it seems like now every time you turn around, there's some mega church pastor that's involved in some scandal, involved in some, you know, whatever. Well, like, yeah, I mean, look, there's bad ones out there. I don't think that means you write off Jesus. I don't think that means you write off church as a whole. You know, I hope not. And I can honestly say that every interaction I've ever had with a conservation officer or a game warden, like, which I've told the story on this podcast before, but at the Sipsey Fork, got stopped when I took a student down there to try to catch trout, and I told him, I said, listen, if we go down here, there is one way in and there is one way out. You have got to have a fishing license. If you don't, you're going to get a ticket. And so, okay, I promise I'll buy one as soon as I get home. And so before we left that morning, I said, do you have your fishing license? And he pulled it out of his wallet and just held it up like this. And I said, okay, good. And so we got in the truck, we drove to the Sipsey, we fished, didn't really do too good. And there's you guys have been down there, and you can only drive in so far. You have to park at like the Alabama Power pump station thing right there. And so as we're putting our stuff up, game warden pulls up behind us, and he just, hey guys, how's it going? Have any luck? Blah blah blah. Let me check your license. Okay, no problem. Well, he checks ours, and I did not physically open up the kid's license and look at it. He just had it folded up and showed it to me. He somehow bought duck stamps instead of buying an actual fishing license. And I mean, I guess technically it's my fault for not, you know, whatever, but the guy that stopped us was super nice, and he said, look, I've seen where you've had a license for the last, whatever, 15 years and counting. And then he looked at the other kid and he's like, I saw where you tried to buy one. You bought the wrong thing, you know, and just basically explained, you know, the need for it and all this kind of stuff. But like, I realize there's probably somebody else out there that has a completely different story. You know, someone who was on a power trip and made their life miserable for no reason because they were having a bad day or whatever. But I just think there's got to be, like we've talked about before, there's got to be less of a just overall general distrust for all things, you know, authoritative or, you know, government related. because it's hard to get people to look past that kind of stuff, though.
Well, and I think it is, and here we are on it, but I think you can chalk this up 100% to the ability to get on social media or some type of electronic platform and blast it across the world, and you have an echo chamber. It don't matter what your opinion is, what has happened, you have an echo chamber where potentially millions of people are going to get behind it, and anything anti-government or wildlife related tends to be consumed at a pretty high level. So if it's wildlife related and anti-government, it generally jumps up there really quickly. I mean, there's some folks out there that have Facebook pages and are quote unquote authors and whatnot, that I mean, they make their entire living on bashing Open Field Doctrine, CWD, and deer breeding, or not bashing deer breeding, but talking about it. It's the only topics that they get on, those three. And look,
and pulling pictures off of Google to go with the stories.
yeah, and don't get me wrong, they're being smart. They're driving a lot of looks to their information. And I have found that a couple of them are actually doing a better job at trying to do some digging in the background and figuring out where some of these decisions came in, how they were made, and I got to give those guys props. I'm not going to call them out, but I have noticed that recently that they're trying to be a little more well-rounded. But the echo chamber on social media can really stir things up, and I did not keep up with the case here in Alabama. Bray may have, but I did keep up with some of the others, just the minute details, and I mean, I almost kind of vividly remember the one in Tennessee. It wasn't the fact that they weren't doing the things they were accused of doing. They just didn't like how they got caught.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll say that the Tennessee case, again, as a landowner, citizen, whatever, that I don't know how to say this without being like, I'm really hard on one side or the other.
Yeah.
Because there's too much that goes into it. But the way it laid out, it did seem like it was 2 years of surveillance.
Uh-huh.
Waiting for something to be caught. At some point, you're going to mess up something.
That's right.
So that's where I go back to, okay, maybe we don't get rid of the Open Fields Doctrine, but maybe we have a stricter guideline on what warrants. Throw it under the guise of officer safety. Have a reason.
Yeah, have a reason to be there.
to be there. And, I mean, all of these Supreme Court cases, and, I mean, I've pretty much got a photographic memory on that stuff, on the years and what happened. The ones that made it to the Supreme Court, none of them had to do with wildlife. It was alcohol, and then it was the war on drugs, and it was sports betting. The big one, where you might hear some people talk about the CATS test, it's KATZ, that was in the 60s. It was a sports bettor, and he would use a payphone, close himself in the payphone, and do his business. Well, the FBI bugged the outside of the payphone. I think they were cracking down on gambling. I don't know the specifics of the law that he was breaking. He was put in prison. It made its way all the way up to the Supreme Court. All of his appeals kept getting denied until he got to the Supreme Court. And they were like, you know what? You do have a reasonable expectation of privacy inside a phone booth, making phone calls. And that FBI evidence gets thrown out. And I think that's so important to sit there and be like, is there a reason you're out here, or are you hitting your 40 hours?
Yeah.
Are you looking for trouble, or are we protecting the resources? Because at the end of the day, nobody got into this job to make a lot of money. You got there, you should have gotten there to take care of the resources. We get into this because we're passionate about it. And I think somewhere along the way, a lot of people do get lost. They go off on rabbit trails, they go off on whatever. And that is what's going to hurt people in the long run more than anything else.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard officers in multiple states, primarily in Alabama, but they had 2 or 3 guys, some of them probably a page or 2 of guys that meant that was the folks that they keyed in on year in, year out. Some of them they caught all the time. Some of them they never caught. They felt certain that they were breaking all kind of different laws, and generally, most of the officers, they would catch up to the folks if they knew they were doing wrong. But you're right. I mean, there's no reason for the Tennessee case. If you've, I'm going to use this term very loosely, air quotes here. If you harass folks for 2 years before you catch them, come on, that's tough. But I have, on some personal instances, known of a couple of guys that officers were trying to catch year in, year out in North Alabama. They were baiting ducks. I knew they were baiting ducks. Everybody knew they were baiting ducks, but you couldn't catch the son of a guns. Couldn't catch them doing it. Don't know how they did it. And to a certain point, they started kind of complaining about, man, y'all just after us. And we're like, well, I wasn't with Game and Fish at that particular point, so I knew what they were doing and I knew how they were doing it. Nobody ever asked me, but there's been some real interesting ways of getting around getting caught.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't want to get caught and you've got pretty good brain and got a little bit of money, you're not going to get caught.
Yep.
No doubt. I think as technology changes, we're just going to probably create a lot more folks that are going to be tempted. Man, the thermal and night vision game is changing dramatically. Drones changing dramatically. I think we're at the precipice of a lot of things in wildlife changing.
Well, and I mean, when the North American model of conservation was created, when our Constitution was created, there were no cell cameras, there were no drones, there was no texting your local officer, there was none of that. So, sorry, something just happened outside my door. There was none of that. So when I say we need a revamp, it's not that I'm saying, oh, we need to change the Constitution. It's we need to stay in line with the times and what we're working with or what we're working against.
Yep.
Because technology is getting to the point where, like, things are going to be overturned if the right people and the right attorneys and all that happens, and it's going to be a huge snowball effect.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt. Well, I guess I know we've kind of, all the questions I was going to ask, we kind of naturally went through them without me having to ask. Maybe this one right here could be one that we might be able to end on, but what's the biggest misconception that people have with a game warden's authority currently? I mean, I've always been told this. I don't know how true it is, but is that they have more authority than any other law enforcement has, meaning that they could write you a ticket for baiting turkeys, or they can pull you over and give you a speeding ticket too. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just what have been told my whole life. But is there a misconception around the authority that a game warden or a conservation officer has?
Yes and no. So I know for me in the state of Alabama, all conservation officers went through the A-Post Academy, which is the Alabama Peace Officers Standards Training Commission. And so we were all sworn as a law enforcement officer in the state of Alabama. So with that, when I left the state, I could have gone to a city, I could have gone to a county, I could have acted as a law enforcement officer in any capacity, aside from the troopers, because they have their special trooper academy where they learn to shine their shoes and stuff.
Shots fired.
No offense to my trooper friends.
Oh, yeah. Shots across the bow.
But it's the beyond that. We have Title IX that we could enforce, and that's your conservation laws. That a typical city or county officer cannot enforce those. But we also, we were trained and we were sworn on Title 13 and Title 32, which is your traffic and criminal laws. So a lot of it all comes down to there's additional training, your field training time with the agency when you left. But the baseline for all law enforcement is the same. It's that in Alabama, it's that A-Post commission. I think other states, they have special conservation officer academies and stuff like that. It's not the same across the board.
That's right.
But there is a misconception on, again, I say was. I'm no longer A-Post certified. I let everything lapse. I wasn't interested in continuing it. Being able to just walk in somebody's house and check their freezer. Like, that wasn't really, that was something I heard a lot was, oh, you can pull people over for speeding and you can walk up in their house and check their freezer and take their taxidermy and this and that. That was not the case at all.
No.
Gotcha.
Yeah. People want to spout off about officers in general, but especially game wardens, about just unlimited authority, and that's just not the case. Could they investigate on land and walk across your property? Yeah, I mean they can. A
county deputy can do that too.
Correct.
Because of the Open Fields Doctrine.
Yeah,
right.
I think where people misinterpret some of that is city or municipalities and for the most part, I think Alabama state troopers, they have policies in place that are internal that limit what they want them doing, to not get into hot water, for something they may not be trained on as well. And I think people feel like that's legal standing instead of policy of the employer.
Yeah. I got you.
Yeah, because game wardens have to be certified in your criminal and traffic laws to be able to do their job also. Because how many officers do we know that got somebody for night hunting and a DUI? Like, you have to be trained in all aspects of it, but it was not some unlimited power to do whatever we wanted. I never took it that way.
No, and I don't. Look, I know very well a couple of the officers that are not liked very well by the general public in Alabama. And although they weren't very well liked, generally speaking, I thought they were good at their job. And I think that's probably why they weren't liked, because they were good at their job. One of them is a very, very close friend of mine. And, he is not liked up here at all, but he was good at what he did. And, another friend hates his guts, and, he'll be straight up with you. He's like, yeah, I was breaking the law. I was towing the line and or breaking the law every time said officer wrote me a ticket. And I'm like, okay, then what's your problem?
Right. Well, he was just a jerk about it. He wasn't nice.
Yeah. So I have seen very, very few instances where officers were abusing power. I know they happen. I mean, absolutely. But I just personally have never been in touch with, maybe more than one, which one's too many. But I can think of one that I was like, okay, yeah, this is suspect.
Yeah. Oh, and I'll go back because there was one thing I forgot was the jurisdiction of game wardens is different than your other officers. That's where a lot of people get like, oh, you have more power than a state trooper. Our jurisdiction was state line to state line. Whereas when you get hired on by the city of Scottsboro, you work in the city of Scottsboro.
Right.
Yeah. I won't ever forget Brock telling a story, and I can't dox the guy because I don't remember who it was. But he said he was riding with somebody when he was a young pup in Mississippi. Got an officer got pulled over by a trooper for speeding, and said the trooper said his piece, and then whoever Matt was riding with was like, yeah. He said, well, your jurisdiction is white line to white line, mine's state line to state line, so you can write that ticket, but it ain't gonna do you any good.
Nice.
I always thought that was funny.
That is funny. I mean, there's, like I said, there's guys that are in every industry that are good and bad and everything in between. When I was going to school at Jack State, I was having to drive back from Jacksonville to up to Albertville. And for those of you who are listening, don't know the geography of where that is, that's about an hour drive. Maybe a little more, a little less. And so on Wednesdays, I would get out of class, I'd get my car, and I'd burn the tires off to Albertville and on a Wednesday night, do a youth service, and then turn around and drive back to Jacksonville so I could be at class in the morning. And there's a stretch, Bray will and Jeremy both will know where this is at, but in Attala, you come out of Attala and you're starting to come up Sand Mountain, and a trooper gets behind me there, and he follows me for, I'm going to estimate, I don't know exactly, but he follows me for somewhere in the neighborhood of about 15 miles, and eventually turns his lights on and pulls me over. And I'm like, I was on the phone with my wife at the time, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm getting pulled over. So pull over, and before I can even roll my window down, this trooper's at my window, just, and he's like, "You were really riding that left lane there." And I'm like, yeah.
Were you a left lane camper?
No, I was going around people. I mean, I was going because there was, I was just trying to get around them and stuff, but I did stay in it passing other cars. And so anyways, yeah, he was like, "You really riding that left lane?" I go, "Yeah." And he goes, I was passing cars, and he was like, "Yeah, well, I saw you were on your phone." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well," you can tell by, I guess, the look on my face. He's like, "It's not illegal to be on your phone." I was like, "I know." And he said, "But it is illegal to stay in the left lane, whatever." And never asked for my license, never asked for anything, just like, to stay out of the left lane, turns around and gets in his car and is gone before I can even like roll the window up. And I was like, brother, like, there's got to be things that you could do to fill out your day other than, you know what I mean? Like, now, like, was I in the left lane? Yes. But I'm just, you know what I'm saying? Like, he followed me forever before he ever pulled me over. And I'm like,
well, it's bad to give examples of this kind of crap when we're talking about what we're talking about. But I mean, y'all know where I live. Yeah. The store right up here, and you know how far that is from my driveway,
right?
Okay. A trooper that I'll leave unnamed pulled her over for leaving the store and turning our driveway without putting on a seatbelt, and gave her a ticket.
That whole 100 yards?
Not that far.
Say 80 yards, maybe.
I was about to say, I can smell the Hunt's Brothers pizza in y'all's driveway.
Yeah. I was pissed. I mean, problem is, she broke the law.
That's right.
It don't matter if she did it for 1 foot or 100 foot. She did. And I was like, yeah, I mean, letter of the law, but good Lord.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
My first ticket, I was coming home from Auburn, and a trooper got me on 280. And this one, I got a ticket for going 72 in a 65, which I was mad about that because I was like, how many times have I gone much faster than that? And I got home and I was so upset because, I'm on my dad's insurance. My dad, the officer. And I had to tell him that I got a ticket. And I was like, but I was only going 72 in a 65. And he was like, so you were speeding. You told him you were speeding. And I was like, okay, you got me. Yeah. You got me on that one.
Well, I find time and time again, because unfortunately I've been pulled over a fair amount. If you tell the truth, that's what they want to hear. They don't want to hear your BS. So I wasn't speeding, or I don't know how fast I was going, or this or that. Go, yeah, I'm sorry, I was speeding. Shouldn't have been, but it was. I'll slow down.
Just cry.
just weep openly.
Just cry.
Yeah. But I know we're getting ready to close out. The purpose behind this episode, to me, was not to bash people that want to roll back OFD or make light of the folks that are bringing the cases, because these are cases that need to be heard. But it was, hopefully folks will understand a little bit more about the Open Field Doctrine and the Public Trust Doctrine and the North American model of wildlife conservation. But I do want to mention this. Brady, you remember Shane Mahoney? The guy that made the rounds? He made rounds several years ago, giving a speech about the North American model of wildlife conservation. And he was a Canadian.
The name sounds familiar, but I don't remember
I encourage anyone listening to just go to YouTube, Google, whatever, and look up a guy named Shane Mahoney and his speech on the North American model of wildlife conservation. It's long. It's 30 to 45 minutes, but it's a phenomenal speech. I forget. I saw him give it in person. I think it might have been when QDMA was still around at one of the national conventions. So it's been a number of years ago, because QDMA hadn't been around in quite a while. But I encourage everybody to go out and listen to that.
Well, and that's the side. I'm not on either side.
Yeah.
Honestly, I just want people to understand, because I'm pretty outspoken about, your property rights and, the infringement of your rights.
We're on the wildlife side.
But I'm on the wildlife side, and I think it's something that if you want to find a reason to be mad, you'll find a reason to be mad.
Yep.
What I encourage is, and this goes for everything, look at why it's so divisive. Look from the other side, because all of us that you would think are sitting here like, no, stay off my property. We understand the North American model of conservation. And that's why I'm not super outspoken about it, because I fall on both sides of the fence. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest, I do. I fall on both sides of the fence on this one.
Oh, I do too. I think I said it on the last time we talked about it. I think Open Field Doctrine being done away with is a win for landowners and citizens, but I think it's a loss for wildlife.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just do. That's how I feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, for sure.
And that's for people like us, that's a hard choice to try to figure out.
It's because I go back and forth. Mm-hmm. I really do, because again, you see a lot more coverage now, and it's like, gosh, if this was done away with, this wouldn't have happened to this person.
Yeah.
Or this. But then, it's wildlife. We agreed that wildlife is a public trust, and we have a responsibility to that public trust.
Mm-hmm.
But is reform needed? Yes, probably.
Yeah, I agree. I think we need to be, as a society, we need to be very careful of
what you wish for.
Yeah, absolutely, because we could potentially have some good wins for the citizens, but we could seriously erode uh, some protections that are needed for wildlife.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. And before we get out of here, just for my own curiosity, Bray, in your time and as a conservation, I guess, I mean, is that fair to say a conservation officer, or is that what you're?
Yeah, so I started out as a wildlife biologist, and then I changed divisions and went into a dual role.
She went from green jeans to blue truck.
I was selling green jeans in a blue truck.
Yeah,
all right, so that's what I'll say then. In your time in green jeans, did you ever get to tase anybody or slap cuffs on anybody?
We didn't have tasers.
No, it's shoot them or don't.
Yeah, so I'm going to assume you didn't shoot anybody. So did you ever get to slap cuffs on anybody?
Cuffed somebody, but they did not go to jail. They went to the hospital. It was a safety thing that they needed to go to the hospital instead of jail.
Oh, and that's something else, Taylor. You mentioned the cuffs, and Bray needs to be very short-winded on this because we're long. But something else that I think has the potential to change as we start monkeying with game laws. When you sign a ticket as from a game warden, that's your bond.
That's all tickets. That's a traffic ticket and everything.
Yeah, but that we could be potentially doing away with that. Where, hey, sorry, man, you shot a dove over your limit. Let's go down to county.
You had 201 pounds of wheat per acre instead of 200 pounds.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, and I wasn't even thinking past the ticket from the game warden, but yeah, it's just for everybody. But you're signing, you're bonding right there.
That is you being released on your own reconnaissance that you will take care of this crime you committed.
Come on, Bray. Not reconnaissance.
Yeah, it is.
Recognizant.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I got the academic award in my police academy. It's right there.
I had to do it. I had to do it for Brock because I know.
Oh, he would have. Yeah, he wouldn't have moved.
He would have jumped on it with both feet.
That's right.
Oh yeah.
Hey, but hey, that means my brain's halfway working.
Yeah, it's working.
It's getting there.
That's a big step for me.
Yes, and you guys stay tuned. This weekend we going south to Mr. Walter's place, and we're gonna have a little fun down there trying to shoot a few pigs and film some podcasts and stuff like that.
Yeah, except for Bray's not coming, Matt's not coming. I mean, nobody's coming.
Brock's not going?
No, they're too busy.
Oh darn! I guess me and Jeremy will just have to shoot all the pigs.
Well, I want you to know that I read that text, and I don't know how many hours that's been, but I have yet to be able to say pork. You're gonna have to say it.
Apocalypse.
Yeah. A pork lips. Did I get it? Okay.
You got close enough.
Look,
Good
I
job,
have tried to say that to a couple people, and I'm like, porkopolyps. And look, I can't get it out. It's been all day I've tried to say that.
Well, if the legend's not there, maybe you'll get to shoot a few.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't even care. I'm going to go film somebody. I think
you did that in Texas. We got to put the camera up. I'll have my cameras and stuff. But.
Okay, well, y'all can twist my arm, but I look, killing pigs is fun, but I don't want to touch darn things. I know if I shoot one, I'm gonna have to drag it. So, or at least tie a rope around it and drag it off with a side by side.
Yep, probably so. Well, guys, listen, we really appreciate you listening. We appreciate you interacting with us on socials and. Like I said earlier, stopping by the Deer Expo, we got to see several of you, and
Yeah, thanks for everybody that bought merch. We were able to buy a dollar value meal or whatever on the way home.
Yeah, really.
Hey, I was wheeling and dealing some shirts and hats.
You did
there for a little bit.
Hey, I look. I was surprised at how much we sold. I really was. Thank y'all for everybody that bought something.
And I don't know what sizes and of everything that's left or whatever. We had a couple of orders come in after the deer show, so we still got some merch. And if you see something on the website,
it's the cool shirts.
There you go. Drip responsibly. Acorns for all the haters out there, especially you Yankees. But yeah, just stay tuned. We got a lot of stuff coming up, and before you know it, hunting season will be upon us, and we will be trying to chase woodland creatures around in the fall. And it's the most wonderful time of the year. So,
hey, I want to say this before we close out. If you're looking to buy or sell land, give us a shout.
Yep, either one of them.
Call Bray, call Matt, call me. Don't matter. We got a full team that can help you.
Yep. And then if you call them and you list with them, then I'll come do the video. So
that's right.
It's going to be take photos, take some sick video. But we appreciate you guys, and we appreciate our sponsors too, who are helping make this possible. But we will see you guys on the next one.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Out.